I'm getting ready to plant my seeds for the garden this year, and we're about 10 weeks, 8, 9, 10 weeks, somewhere around there from our last frost date. And we usually plant outside around Mother's Day. That's just a general rule of thumb for the area I live in 6B. So it's time to get some of the plants that take a little bit longer to germinate going. And that includes the brassicas, some peppers, and then a few other things like eggplant and kale that we'll get going. We'll also plant directly outside in one of my earth boxes some sugar snap peas and probably some snow peas as well. And I may do a video on those showing you how I do that. I've got to get a couple of the boxes ready for that. But I'll share with you how I do my seeds. Now, it's a little different for everybody. There's no right or wrong way. The way that works for you is the right way for you. So to start out, I've got some of the pods soaking for my Aerogarden. And I've used this for the past 2 or 3 years to start seeds and have had some pretty good success with it. Not with everything, but especially good success when it comes to my peppers. Because I can leave them in here a little bit longer. They get a little bit bigger before I have to up pot them. And my peppers just do better. I have the most success using this type for starting my peppers as opposed to one of the little grow kits that I'll start some of the other brassicas in. But for these, I'm growing several types of peppers. I'm doing some orange spice, lemon spice jalapenos, and some green jalapenos, along with orange and yellow bell peppers. We're not going way out on peppers this year, but I am each year experimenting with different flavors of colors and flavors of jalapenos. So orange is the new one. I did yellow last year. We liked them. So this year I'm doing this one. So I've been soaking the pods in some distilled water. Anytime I use the Aerogarden, you need to use distilled water. And that's just to help prevent fungus and mold from growing. And that's just what I've always used. That's what the directions for the Aerogarden say to use. Now, I won't fertilize or add any nutrients to this water right now. But once they're up and about 1 or 2 inches tall, I will start adding some nutrients to the Aerogarden to keep them fed. So this starts with just putting them in these pods into the Aerogarden. I've been soaking them for about 20 minutes just to make sure they get all moist. If you just drop them in here and without soaking them, they'll stay dry down in the little holes. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that little hole down in there where you put the seed, they'll stay dry in there, and you don't get good germination doing it that way. And there's 23 slots in this one. And I've got everything laid out how I'm going to do them. And I've got a printed template that I use to keep track of what I plant where in here. And we're going to start with the yellow bell. And I usually put 2 seeds in each of these, and once they come up, I will thin it down to just 1 seed per pod. And they'll get some decent roots in here before I up pot them, and that's okay. And I won't show you this whole process on all of these, but I'll show you how I do the first ones just so you know. Put my seeds out here. And I just go by hand, and we're going to start over here on the left, and I'm just going to put 2 little seeds down in each little hole, and I'll come back and push those in just a little bit. And I will transplant these later in the year to my earth boxes. And I'll do more on that later. But each earth box can hold, the directions say 6 bell pepper, but I find the best, or 6 pepper plants, and I find they do the best in with just doing 4. I'm going to put 1 more in there. And then we'll put these little seeds back in here. And I might start some more later in the year to keep production going in the fall. We have a first frost date that comes usually in late October, early November, so sometimes I can get a second round in, but not always. Anyway, that's how I start my seeds in the Aerogarden. And I'll do a row of orange, I'll do these middle 4 of the green, then I'll do yellow and orange, and then I'll throw some of my eggplant over here in a couple of these. I just grow a couple of these eggplants. So that's how I do this. And then I've got all the seeds in there now. And then what I do is I take a little dibble of some sort and just kind of make sure they're getting good contact with the pod in there. You don't push them down very far. Yes, they're not covered completely, but this will work. Trust me. And once you make sure they're all down in there and getting good contact, I haven't planted the eggplant yet. I take a dropper, any kind of dropper. I get a little bit of the distilled water and I just place a drop or two on the top of each one. And that way I'm making sure the seeds are getting a little bit of moisture to begin with. And again, this is not the right or the wrong way to do it. This is just how I do it. And I've had pretty good success doing it this way. All right. And then I've got my layout of where everything is, and I'll tuck that away so I know what I planted, and then I've got to put the date on here. So I'll remember what date I planted them. And then I'll come back and add about what day they go out, which is usually around May 6th or so. Somewhere around there that weekend. Now it's on to start some of the other seeds. And I'm trying these. This is the first year I've used these little bitty compact trays to start seeds in. I'm used to using the big 10-20 trays. But as I'm getting older, I've got a few steps to go up and down to carry plants in and out, especially when I'm getting to the point of needing to harden them off to get them outside. And I needed something that I could manage and not dump all my seedlings as I go down the steps. So this is what I'm trying this year. And this pack I bought came with 4 of them, and they have little domes and has a LED light in it too, which I may or may not use the light, at least not initially, till they're up, but we shall see. And in here, I take my potting mix, and this is seed starting mix, and I've just soaked it a little bit with some water. I did hot water and have been letting it cool off. Let's see, it clumps together, but it breaks apart easy. I don't know if you can see that. And that's how I know it's ready, because it clumps, but it's still soft and loamy. And then I just come in here and fill my seed trays, making a mess everywhere, but I'll clean it up. And I'm not going to pack these down in here real tight. I want it loose and fluffy. I am going to put some pressure on it and get them down in there, and I'll show you how I do that. But right now I'm just trying to get all the cells filled. And again, this is a seed starting mix. It's actually one I bought last year and had left over, so I didn't have to buy any new mix this year. And I've got more than what's in that bucket. That's just the bucket I'm using to get going. And I've got them all covered here. And I'm just going to take one of these trays and just gently tamp it down a little bit. I mean, I don't want it down real hard. Brush any of this extra in here. And then I'm going to start with cabbage. Now, these are a small cabbage. These are a market style cabbage because, again, I grow most of these in earth boxes. And there's only so many you can put in an earth box. And I'm choosing this year. I've grown like Napa and Hilton Head, big heads in it. But this year I'm going with a smaller head. And I'm just going to put a couple of seeds in each cell. And again, I'll thin these out. Try to keep them close to the center. Little tiny seeds. It's hard to see once you've dropped them. I think I'm getting 3 in most of these, but I meant to go 2. It'll be all right. And I poured out the perfect amount. So that's my cabbage. And I'm going to write on a tag and stick it in these. And I'm mark it. And then once I get all of these planted, I'll just put a very loose coat of the starting mix on top. And again, I don't want anything real thick on these. I want them to come out easy. I'm just going to go back and tamp it down just gently with my finger. You want it to have contact. And then I'll spray these down with some water and get them under the lights on my shelf here after I get the rest of these planted. I'm going on to plant cauliflower, broccoli, kale. I'm going to plant that later. And then I'm going to do some chard. And I'm going to try this Chinese yellow heart. They call it a cabbage, but it looks more like a bok choy or a tatsoi. But they say this one does really well in colder temperatures. So I'm going to even try this in the fall too. And this is where I have them all watered in, and I put some water just a little bit down in the reservoir. Put them on the heat mat. Although brassicas really don't need a heat mat, you can use one. Put the domes on them, and they don't need the lights right now, but I just wanted to test out the lights and make sure it worked now. And I can actually control the lights with the little controller over here. And I can turn them brighter or lower or off. And once they sprout, I'll probably leave them on for about 8 hours a day until I'm ready to transplant them into bigger pots or move them outdoors. And that's how I start my seeds.